Okay, welcome everybody. So I have a couple of announcements to get us started. First of all, welcome to the launch episode of the Rest of the Fucking Owl podcast. You are my premier audience, and I am stoked you're here, and I'm stoked for this podcast. I have been planning this thing since 2018, believe it or not, and I buried it for a long time before I said yes to myself about this, and yeah, more of that story in a minute, but we ran a big art festival today. It took an army to do it, so thank you for everybody that pitched in and made amazing art happen and instigated some of the coolest life changes and like creative like onslaughts that I've ever been accosted with. It was beautiful. So I'm really proud of all of those people that got involved, and I have promised them a winner of the contest of contests. For those watching at home, the contest of contests was I had a bunch of people apply to host their own contest within like a 15-minute walk of this building. And then we all did an art crawl and went around to every single contest and watched all of this amazing art happen. And they all get votes, all the audience members get votes to decide who will the winning contest be, whose contest was the most artful. And so now I have to count up those votes, which I haven't done yet, but I have a little algorithm that's going to do it really quickly. I just have to copy and paste some stuff. So you get to watch me do that for a second. It's very entertaining, I know. So I'm going to leave the music going while I do that. It's my favorite playlist, and it's a really good one. This is called El Tulluminati because I was in Tulum when I started making it. And this is Sammy Ray and the Friends. So hope you enjoy. Thanks again for being here, and stay tuned for the results. Cheers. All right. We have our results, and I know you're all aching to hear them. Yes! Well, I have a little bit of a worry that we're going to catch some heat, that this game is somehow rigged. I won. I'm kidding. I didn't even run. No, actually, so we had 5 amazing contestants. Let me run down what they actually created before I tell you who was victorious. So the first contest, who entered last, were the competitive buskers. This was led by Ariel and James. And this was really cool because it was like they knew how to make a free-for-all really work. It was just like, hey, show up here. We're all going to compete to see who can make the most money in an hour with busking. And there were so many different buskers. They had like a guy playing chess for $1. They had a guy drawing bad art for $1. He was, I will do a bad drawing of you for $1. It was beautiful. Didn't win. The next one was the Change Your Life as Drastically as Possible in 90 Minutes contest, hosted by Jet. And it happened right here in this room, too, which was really cool. And it's hard to express just how different of an event this was. I've never been to anything like this before. This room was full of people cheering for other people, vastly changing their lives in, like, no time at all. And so, like, the idea was you get the whole room's support to, like, make an incredible, like, maybe rash decision about something major in your life, or maybe several somethings major. And it was a brilliant time, very inspiring for me. I was like, wow, you can really just rip off the Band-Aid like 4 times in front of a whole crowd full of people, and it will stick. Or it will unstick. Anyways, mixing my metaphors, it was a beautiful time. I enjoyed it a lot. It didn't win. I'm sorry. The following contest was an exhibition contest that I ran myself called the Karaoke Showdown. 4 duos entered. They sang duets. Only one person left unscathed. And so basically the audience decided by applause who to eliminate from each round. And when we got to the last duo, they had to split up and sing solos against each other. And it was awesome. They put on such a show. Our winning duo sang songs like at each other, and they were dynamite. Lysander was disqualified for possible COVID. Turns out not to be COVID. But he's also really cute, so he would have won. And let's see. That also that contest didn't win. And then the contest that followed that one was led by Bridget, and it was the So You Want to Be a Consigliere contest. Also, unlike any contest I've ever been to, this was a game show to see who could be the Don's next right hand. We had a little bit of like a family affair going on here because Jet was also party to this contest. He was the Don, and he was such a good Don. And the contestants were rabid. They were really going at each other. But it's a game that takes finesse, and the person who had that finesse was Ariel. So I would like to congratulate everyone involved in that contest. You won the contest of contests. And I did not rig this voting system. ChatGPT built it. So I didn't tell it that my partner had the consigliere contest, and it doesn't. It knew. It just knows. So yeah, thanks to vibe coding and some Excel spreadsheeting, we had a quick count of the electronic votes, and Bridget won by a landslide. That contest was so incredible. It was really fun to come to. So I would like to welcome Bridget to come on stage with me.
I can do anything because Jet's going to win. So I don't have to prepare for this.
The Don always wins.
The Don did win.
Oh, I just realized that I forgot to record the audio for this. Now I'm recording audio as well. Well, here we go. This is my first time podcasting. Can you tell? Thank you. So allow me to introduce Bridget, my partner.
I was not expecting this in any way. I really thought Jet would win because I thought his contest was the best. And I was like, well, mine's fun, but he's going to win. So...
Well, I was kind of anticipating that would be a very popular one because it had such intense enthusiasm. But I think that there was some other magic ingredient in yours, and I'm not quite sure what that was, but maybe we can figure it out.
I bribed people with pizza.
Oh.
That's what happened, is people got to eat pizza.
That might have been the leading edge.
And it was quite good pizza, so...
It was very good pizza. I admit that openly, but I don't think that made the difference. It was a beautiful hypothesis.
Thank you.
Well, a little bit about the reason that we're up here is that Bridget and I stood on this same stage a few months ago and presented to this community that we really want to start an arts hub for this community, Fractal. We want to bring people together on like a daily basis to make art together, to experience new art together, to support one another in their artistic depth and growth. And it went over really well. Everyone felt really enthusiastic about it, and we've had a couple of follow-up things where we get together with people about it and they're still amped, but we haven't been able to make a whole lot of like material progress on that venture because, well, it requires finding the right real estate and all of these other moving parts. But one thing that we've made a whole lot of progress on is developing the arts culture of this community, which is a team effort, as we saw today. And the reason that I wanted to start this podcast was also part of that I really want to create a space where the conversation about art is not just about like the ascended masters who make it to the upper echelons, but also to the people who are just everyday people like you and me, making art in their basements, making art in their attics, and doing it with a sense of, wait, why am I doing this? Or who am I doing this for? And sometimes feeling like they don't want to keep going, or like it's not something that they're cut out for, but they just have this like burning desire to do it anyway. And what the podcast is about is essentially saying, no, you are made for this. Like, dive in. I want you in this team with me. I want you to be making your art and sharing it with the world. It's how you become a better artist. It's how the world gets better culture. It's how we all come together and discover who we are. And so our vision for the Fractal Arts Hub was also like a big fuel source for me in starting this podcast. And I'm really grateful to Bridget for encouraging me the whole way to get started on this. And also this art contest today was another sort of like invitation to just like make your art and make it out loud. And in service of that, one of Bridget's fine arts we were trying to even figure out what to call it the other day. We went through a long conversation of like, what would you call this art form? Have you landed on any descriptor for that?
No.
You definitely performed it very well today. I saw that's why you won the contest, is like you were doing your exact art form really well. And it's like, well, the nearest descriptor we've found is
experience design, but it's not exactly correct because it's also immersive theater, but it's not necessarily asking anyone to assume a role, but to like be brought into a different world. So it's like experience design plus light immersive theater. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was some of that ask from your contestants today. They had to role play and they had to play games against one another.
Yeah. No one knew any of the contests in advance. Like the only thing that anyone knew was what I wrote in the particle, which was extremely vague and not descriptive at all, which many people told me about in advance. Was like, so what is this contest about? What do I have to do? And I was like, I can't tell you. You just have to come. What would the Dawn want you to bring to this contest?
It was beautiful. It was like you were in character even before we got there.
I just like surprising people and forcing them to do things against their will at the spur of the moment.
Cool. Nobody will be taking that out of context. So, like, one of the questions that I love to ask artists, and I've like been in a lot of conversations about this lately, especially recording a couple of episodes that haven't been released yet, but will be soon, and I'm excited about. The question is, was there a moment with this work where you thought it wouldn't work at all, or it wasn't going to happen, or you almost called it quits?
I don't think I ever almost called it quits because I had already committed to it, and if I had already paid the deposit for the venue. So I was like, if I had called it quits, I would have just lost $180 or something. But prior to the event, I was extremely nervous, and I was tapping on my phone during the other contest, trying to like edit the little mini contest that I had inside my contest. So it was sort of like a nested contest within the contest of contests. So many contests.
Contests all the way down.
It's contests all the way down. And I was just editing my contest until the last minute because I was afraid that they wouldn't be coherent, or people wouldn't get them, or they would be boring or whatever. But I never considered like canceling the contest. I would never do such a thing.
Never.
But I definitely was like freaking out beforehand, like editing things and changing things up to the last minute. Yeah.
I mean, it's reassuring just to know that like it didn't feel like it was going to go super well and then went super well.
Yeah.
I think that's just like a good takeaway for people working on an artistic project. You do not know what the finished form is going to look like. Just keep going. This also has come up with every piece of work that we've worked on together. We've collaborated on several shows, and every single time there are multiple points where we look at each other and we're like, how are we going to do this? Are we going to pull this off? And usually like the day before or day of production, it's like, okay, deep breath. Let's see if this works. And then it seems to work beautifully. We always have a really good time, which is why we keep doing it. We have a good time throughout production too. It's just that day right before you like fire shots that it's like, I don't know if it's going to happen.
I mean, I do aspire to have a day where I feel just like very relaxed the day before and like everything is prepared. There's nothing last minute that I have to run to the store to do, but it has not happened yet. So one can hope.
Were there happy accidents with your show today that like, wow, I didn't plan that one. It just was a gift?
I mean, I guess just like the spirit of the contestants was like, there were a lot of contestants who started out in the contest, but then there were like 3 by the end who really had committed to the bit and were like ready to devote their entire life, all of their possessions, their self-worth, their dignity to the Don who is sitting right there. I'm looking at him. So yeah, just like having people that are willing to commit to it and are enthusiastic and excited and interested was incredible. And like that is what made the event. And also like having James, who is leaving right now, be our doorman with me and like induct people into the atmosphere and tell them the rules of the event and everything was like indispensable. And doing it myself would have been so much harder. So yeah.
So, like, kind of a mix of happy accidents, running around with your hair on fire.
Yeah.
And certainly there was a part of this that was like an epic amount of discipline not to tell anybody spoilers about what you were planning.
That was actually not that hard because I love secrets. And I really enjoyed having everyone come up to me and be like, so what's this contest about? And me being like, well, you just have to come and find out. That was fun for me. And I like surprises. And also, I genuinely did not think I was going to win. So I was kind of like, well, Jet's going to win, who played the Dawn for me. So I just kind of said, fuck it, and we'll do whatever because I'm not going to win anyway, and I can just have fun. So I had fun, and I guess that worked out for me.
It really did. I think that that's one of the things that has helped me with any of the like live performances that have gone well for me is when I have a like, yeah, fuck it, we ball kind of attitude, like not expecting anything at all to go well. That's when I completely let my hair down. That's when the like really cool happy accidents can actually do something for me. Cause like happy accidents only work for you if you're open to them. If you're like, nope, we're going to the plan. Then it's just like, you don't get the bonus points. So I think that you're like, yeah, the hell with it. Let's go kind of attitude was like a big boost. I'm curious about what this inspires for you. Don't divulge any secrets, but what does this inspire for you to work on next? Like, what did you take away from this for your own craft?
Well, my original idea for a contest was based on the Salon de Refuses, if anyone knows what the original reference of that was, which was an art exhibition that happened like in the 19th century where people who had been rejected from the original artistic salon, which was put on by the Academy, put on their own salon, which was like, you know, their informal kind of rebellious salon, which ended up actually getting sponsored by Napoleon. So it wasn't actually as unofficial as they maybe wanted to market it as. But it was like people who had been rejected from the official Academy put on their own salon and then got an audience of people who would laugh at them for creating art that was to the public mind ridiculous. And my original idea was to host a 2025 version of this salon across the street at the recycling center called Sure We Can, playing on the very obvious pun of refuse and refusees. I will do this at some point, but the venue rejected me because they were already hosting a theater event there that night. And so I had basically a week to figure out what to do instead of that event. And it's very hard, it turns out, to have an item on your to-do list, which is called have an idea. And fortunately,
was that literally written on your to-do list?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Fortunately, I have Heart around to remind me of previous ideas that I've had in the past. And so the Mafia event was an adaptation of a previous event that I was going to do, which involved like a pizza creation competition where everyone would play different members of different Mafia families who would enter different pizzas in the competition and compete to be the best pizza. In this event, everyone was part of the same Mafia family, and we were all competing to become the next consigliere for the Dawn. And now I've suddenly lost the thread of the recent question. What does it inspire me to do next? Okay, well, I actually want to do the original idea of the event first, because I think it's very funny and evocative to invite a bunch of artists who are not doing the type of art that is like considered like mainstream or in vogue or whatever, display at an event that is like popular and well attended. And I think it's hilarious that the original Salon de Refuses was kind of like an event that people attended specifically to laugh at the art. And I would love to invite people to participate in that spirit where they're like maybe supporting the Academy and kind of laughing at the art, but in that way sort of creating popularity and buzz around the art that's there by ridiculing it. So, you know, it's sort of like the haters make me famous sort of attitude. And I kind of want to cultivate that atmosphere where people feel comfortable with either criticizing or really supporting the art that they see. And also just giving the artists an opportunity to feel like they have been rejected from some kind of like normative kind of set of standards or whatever, and feel like they've been inducted into a sort of rebellious, fun atmosphere where they can reject the norms of the Academy and do something different. Anyway, I kind of took that in a different direction. I also want to do immersive theater, which I will continue to do regardless of whether people like my events or not.
This sounds the sort of like standing up to ridicule, whether real or fake, sounds like kind of therapeutic for the artists involved. Like it would be a good exposure therapy. I get to just like normalize the fact that people are going to ridicule this. And then I think it kind of could like flip over into this fuck it we ball kind of attitude where the next thing that comes out is like so low stakes that it like just sails.
Something that I think is kind of interesting is that the normal like artistic sphere is a bit opaque now in a way that it used to not be. Like before, they kind of had a set of standards that was like, can you paint a hand in a way that like conforms to our standards or something? And we don't really have that anymore. And so like people will get rejected from galleries or whatever based on a kind of set of arbitrary, to my perspective, standards. And I just think it's hilarious to buck the trends of that and be like, well, you didn't paint your hand in the way that is accepted to the rest of society, so you get rejected from the Academy, but you can portray at this silly recycling center art festival or something. And yeah, so we don't really have like a set of standards to rebel against. And I think that kind of like impacts creativity in a way, because having a set of standards and having that set of standards that people can rebel against is a great way to inspire artists. Like constraints sometimes create art in a way that a blank page cannot. Mm-hmm. And so like having an academy that has like rules that you can reject actually causes people to become a lot more creative and a lot more bombastic. And because we don't have that anymore, people can be a little more milquetoast, or actually the milquetoast becomes the standard. And then it becomes kind of more meaningless. And well, I won't get into that now, but yeah, I actually support having standards in art specifically so that people can reject them and make better art in response to those standards.
That's getting applause in the room. For those watching at home, they won't hear you clapping, but I strongly agree, and so does everyone here. Yeah, that's awesome. What's weird and ironic about that is if you tell people, here are the standards to rebel against, then they're like, nope. You have to be like, here are the standards.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that we have Impressionism is because there were standards that artists back then were like, this is boring. I want to make like a blurry picture of a river instead. And that's why we have Claude Monet and all of the artists that were like friends with him, was because of the Salon de Refuses and like this intense, amazing, generative movement that happened because there were standards to rebel against. And like there are so many examples of this. I don't want to get too far into it because I'm kind of obsessed with this, but like in the Italian Renaissance, like people had a conception of what each city in Italy represented artistically. And so they would either try to conform to that or they would rebel against it specifically. And so they would kind of create this sort of like opposition ladder effect where it'd be like, we're this. No, we're this. So we're going to make this. And then they're like, no, we're not like that. So we're going to make that. And then it was sort of like we're making each other better by competing sort of thing. And that's when I think that competition is the healthiest, when people are like, yeah, we stand for this, and maybe we're shitting on your thing a little bit, but we're not like only shitting on your thing. We're also championing a thing that we want to see more of, and then we're making each other better by that spirit of healthy competition.
Mm-hmm. And I totally knew all of that when I arranged this competition of competitions. So, yeah. Thanks for selling everybody on my idea. So, one thing I thought would be fun would be to bring your winning contestant on stage with us, if she's willing. And she's smiling shyly right now. Do you feel like you would like to join us on stage? All right. Can you bring a chair? Because we don't have one more chair up here. But Bridget, if you'll slide over, and we'll make a little room for Ariel. Because I kind of really enjoyed watching your performance slash competition efforts. And I think there's some lessons here we can dig up. I'm ever the pedagogue, and I like to find like life lessons and takeaways in every little experience, especially if it's an artistic experience, because I'm just obsessed with like growing as an artist. And I really loved the way that you showed up in the contest today. It felt artful. You were in character. You were like committed to a bit. And it seemed like you had a vision of like something you were bringing in that was your own version of the consigliere role that you were playing and your relationship to the Don. And it was like, yeah, this is working for reasons. So I would love to know sort of what was in your mind as you were going through that. How did you experience the contest and its sort of parameters? Were you rebelling against it? How did that go for you?
Yeah. Well, I think for me early on, one of the challenges that we had, can I reveal the challenges now?
Also, can you come a little closer because you're barely on camera?
Okay. Okay, there we are.
This is Ariel, by the way. Ariel is a close friend and a novelist and a consigliere, and also working on a nonfiction right now. Many talented person you are.
Thank you. Yeah, tonight I'm here to talk about being consigliere.
Yeah, she's very businesslike, if nothing else. So yeah, let's get back to the share you were about to open up.
Yeah. So at the beginning there was a lot of us up on stage, like contestants, and one of the early challenges was to deliver news to the Don and to deliver unpleasant news to him. And everyone was kind of going up, and people had all kinds of kind of jokey bits. Like people were kind of trying to find ways to make it funny, and I was like, in my head at first I was like, oh, how am I gonna make this into a joke? Like, but I was kind of coming up blank, and then I sort of had an idea, like, I decided kind of consciously not to prioritize being funny for the rest of the contest. Yeah. So I kind of more just delivered it straight. Like I just delivered the news, the Don, completely straight, and then gave practical advice. Because I figured if I was a Don, I would want the information not being sugar-coated. And that sort of became like a persona throughout the rest of the contest. And yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah.
And people threatened you in the break during the break.
Yeah, I was threatened during the break, told to drop out of the contest or harm would befall me.
I have a feeling that I know who issued that threat.
Do you?
I do, don't I?
Sneaky out there.
Well, he was committing to the bit in other ways, too. I applaud him. It sounds like the right move in a consigliere contest, but I'm glad you didn't cave to the pressure.
People were really committed to the. It was cool because we kind of polarized into these different characters, like there wasn't any coordination. It just sort of happened as the game went on.
And this is funny because it felt like I think most people were not taking this as like, oh, this is an art form and I'm learning to perfect it. But it kind of seems like you had a little bit of that bent. You were like, how do I'm committing to this like humorlessness persona. And it was funny. There were moments of it where it was like your refusal to try to be funny was funnier. And you also had like a kind of, I don't know, panache or like smoothness to delivering the hard news and stuff like that I was like, yeah, that wins. That wins. So I called it early on, but I didn't call it out loud. You have to call it out loud if you want it to actually count. Did you feel like you were like headed to the top?
At a certain point, I just realized there's not a lot of people here anymore. I was like, at each round, I was pretty confident I was getting to the next round. But then when it was down to me and Ben at the end, I really could, like, I felt it could go either way. There was a moment where I think Jet was faking us out, or it seemed like he was going to choose Ben.
He's a hard man to read, even right now. Yeah, case in point. So, what are you going to do with all your winnings?
Well, just do my job, and the winnings go to the Dawn, and I take my cut.
No, but what are you going to do with the cannoli?
Oh. I haven't thought that far ahead. It's in my fridge.
There's only so many things you can do with a cannoli. Actually, that's not true.
There was a prize-winning cannoli that was very, very large.
It looked like a prize zucchini. It was intimidating. I hope you have a good time with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. It was an awesome event.
Another hand for Ario. So I do want to continue on the track of sort of what you are learning about immersive theater from this experience, or about sort of experience design. One thing that I thought was kind of magical about this was how quickly people like learned what character they were going to play and like leaned into it. And I didn't hear you one time encourage people explicitly to do that. It was all just in the water. What do you think like allowed people to just like play so freely in that water?
Well, I mean, I love a party theme. And so when someone writes like a costume that I should dress in for the night, I'm ready to go. And I am rather militant about this in that I scorn people who do not dress in the party theme. So I told everyone to dress in 1920s mafia garb. I had a playlist going, and even though I didn't have a lot of props, I encouraged the environment that people should be in the 1920s. And it's very freeing to embody a character that is a little different than you, and to just like feel a little more free in yourself. And I don't know, yeah, just try to be a little different. And an event that encourages and supports that, I think, is great. And I will continue to host such things in the future.
That's really good to hear, because I will be there. And I did already know that you were planning to host these sorts of things in the future, and that I will definitely be like some sort of operations piece of that. One of the things that Bridget and I have been working on that I'm excited you're here to help me talk about is that we are kind of learning how to make an offer of like our immersive theater productions as a product, which is very hard to do because it's not the most familiar like household phrase. When you tell people you do immersive theater, they need like several paragraphs of explanation for what that is. And it's an amazing experience and not one that I would pass up, but I didn't know it existed like 2 years ago. And so now that I'm like trying to figure out how to message this to people, I mean, this is a good example of just one more thing I didn't expect to go so well that did. It just had a magic about it. And I'm curious, like, do you think that having this experience makes it a little easier to like pitch the offer or kind of sum up what it is we do?
Well, turns out people like to pretend that they're part of organized crime. And that's just the beginning. So any event that allows you to like occupy a very human role, which will become all the more prevalent as AI becomes more prevalent, is really going to become popular and become even more special because you can't really fake immersive theater. Like you can have an AI write your lines for you, I guess. But at the end of the day, you're still there occupying the role. And people will know if you're phoning it in or if you're actually committed to the bit and invested in what you're doing. So, yeah, I feel all the more inspired by doing these kinds of events, which are somewhat surprising and ask kind of a lot of guests. But I enjoy asking a lot of people because I feel like a lot of events don't ask a lot of people now. And I want to like keep people on their toes and keep them ready to improvise and ready to make a toast to the dawn at a moment's notice, and present him with a gift that he wasn't expecting. I feel like I've veered off track yet again, but
well, I like where you landed there because I think that it shows something that really surprised me about your event and Jet's event. Jet's was the Change Your Life in 90 Minutes or Less event. Change Your Life as drastically as possible in 90 minutes or less. And one thing that is like in common between those two events is that you both asked more of your audience than I thought was even reasonable to ask of an audience. Like, okay, stand up here in a row and make a toast to this guy who's in character. He's fiction. You take it away. Public speak in front of all these people. And they just get up there and do it. And Jet was like, so, you know, skin in the game, get up here on stage, tell us how you're going to change your life really drastically, and then do it. And I thought that both of these shows would be like really ambitious, and I had some worries that they would both just be like a lot of people sitting on their hands waiting for someone else to make the move. And it was the opposite. There was so much enthusiasm, and one person jumps in, the next person jumps in, and they're just like chomping at the bit to try to like outdo each other and how big and committed they can be. And I love that. It gets more and more creative. And what I see about this is that like we could ask more of audiences and more of like entertainment that we do together is like, I think we're kind of sick of being passive and just watching somebody else do the hard part. We actually like really enjoy putting ourselves to the test and being out there on a limb. So I'm like taking that away from this, like ask more things of participants and get them like really feasting on the opportunity to not know what's next. That was just a little inspiration you gave me. Thank you. Were you surprised that your audience was as bought in as they were?
No, because the RSVPs, like I had a little questionnaire beforehand and I asked if like people would be just observing or want to compete for the Dawn's favor. And really a lot of people wanted to compete for the Dawn's favor. So when we began the event today at the venue, there were a lot of people that ended up not actually like sharing their voices or actively competing in the contest, because there were so many good contestants that were intimidating. So I actually wasn't that surprised because everyone wants to be a friend of the Dawn. I mean, look at him. Look at this guy.
He's a mensch. Look at him. Was there anything that you would do differently about the event design?
I would have more than 1 week to prepare because I would have liked to make the little like family feud challenges a little more like personalized or funny or tailored to me. Instead, I kind of just took like boilerplate mafia-esque activities and turned them into challenges. But I feel like they weren't really like stamped with my signature in the way that I would have preferred them to be. But unfortunately, my event that I had originally planned, which I've talked about, the Salon de Refuses, was refused. like a week ago, so I had to very quickly come up with an idea. Fortunately, Hart reminded me that I had a different idea a while ago that I could adapt to this event, and so I did. But it would have been a lot less stressful to have more than a week to think of all the challenges and watch The Godfather, which I only watched 40 minutes of.
Yeah, this
night.
is still... We have some unfinished business. So we were like talking back and forth about this this contest idea, and she was like, I think I'm gonna run it as the Mafia, and I was like making some Godfather references, and she was like, oh right, I haven't seen The Godfather, and I was like, we're gonna fix that right away. And so we set aside a night and got to it very late and started watching The Godfather, and like 40 minutes in, it's just like, oh my god, it's so sleepy. And this is actually a very slow-paced film, despite the horse head in the bed. And so we paused it at 40 minutes. I was like, I know we'll get to it later.
We didn't.
We're so good about watching movies. We have watched like 3 movies together our entire year-long relationship. So it's just, we don't turn on the TV. We write our own theater. It's kind of what we do for entertainment. But this was a really good time to like watch something and to see like, what is this filmmaking and storytelling doing and stuff like that. And what I really admire about your storytelling and your contest is you came out with like 5 or 6 scenarios of what might have happened in the Don's family that the consigliere would have to give him bad news about. Every single one of these was like, I feel like that was in The Godfather, but we didn't watch that part. Wait, how did you just nailed it. Like you really understood the mafia like system of conflicts really well.
I mean, someone's cheating on someone's stealing money, someone's a fed. That's basically all you need to know about the mafia.
You're dumbing it down. They were complex tales. It was cool. Anyway, I was very impressed at how you could take the seed of that and just like grow it into a bunch of scenarios. And they were sweaters. They were like, if I got that scenario and had to present the Don some bad news, I know he would be like off with my head. So yeah, that was a really cool bit of creativity. I don't know where you came up with it.
Well, I couldn't have done it without the Don Cannoli, aka Jet.
Don Cannoli. Don Cannoli.
Like, I mean, I very much relied on him for every single contest to choose who was worthy and who was not. I just presented the contests and he chose who would move on to the next round. So,
yeah. Well, let's see. I feel like we've covered every little aspect of the competition set, except I did forget to mention the last contest because I was going through them in order and being like, they didn't win, then they didn't win. I didn't mention the last contest, which is kind of still going on right now on the roof of this building. So our dear friend Regan hosted a cocktail contest that was very creatively themed. It was a mythology mixology contest where every contestant had a pantheon they were representing, whether Norse gods or the Hindu pantheon, etc. And so then they were creating drinks that were themed around those archetypes, those mythological worlds. And it was really cool, festive, vibey. Everyone was having such a good time that when I announced that we're going to go talk about the winners of the contest, most of the people stayed up there to party. So, like, in one way, yours won.
Who's the real winner?
In another way, like, she had the party that lasted the longest. So, yeah, props to Regan for throwing a banger out there. And I heard the cocktails were very good, but I didn't get to sample any of them, sadly. So I'll have to see if there's any leftovers from their batches. But yeah, I was really grateful to all of our contestant hosts who just threw awesome parties and events and created really good vibes. I'm really grateful to live here among these folks and have just such creative output all the time to get to collaborate with and stuff. So thank you all for making it so special. Let's see. I guess, is that all I wanted? I think I had other things I wanted to say. Well, this is technically the first episode of the podcast, and I haven't really... Thank you. So I haven't really talked on air with all of y'all yet, or with all of the internet yet about like what I'm doing here. Why this name for this podcast? What's my vision for it? And it is like the kind of thing that's going to keep taking shape. So I'm cool with that. But it's called the Rest of the Owl podcast if you like the family-friendly titles and you're searching on Spotify, or if you're just one of the people, it's the Rest of the fucking Owl podcast. And this comes from an internet meme that is a classic. It's how to draw an owl. Step 1, draw some circles. Step 2, draw the rest of the fucking owl. And it's like finished owl on the other side. And I love this meme. And then when I was thinking about podcasts and what I listen to and how they bring on artists and talk to them about their work, I'm like, I always want to feel more inspired to go make my work when I watch these podcasts, listen to these podcasts, and I see these conversations. And they're typically on air because they're selling a new release. It's because they've just finished work and they're like promoting it. And while I want artists to get paid, and I like that there's a circuit out there where they can just go talk to an audience and be like, buy my thing, experience my novel, like watch my movie, and that's great. It also, because of this effect, you always get finished work, finished work, finished work, finished work. It's all got polish on it. It's all done being like uncertain. And what that leads to, if you're a struggling artist and you're in the middle of your craft and you are like fighting with all the implements, trying to get your expression to be real, and you hear this stuff on the airwaves all the time, then it starts to feel like you're the only one who doesn't have their shit together. Like, everyone knows how to finish work except me. Everybody else has a finished novel except me. Well, that's not the reality for most artists. Most art doesn't see the light of day. Most art stays in a closet somewhere. And I think that it's because we have this kind of conversation that's afraid of it, or we have the kind of conversation that focuses only on the like product and not the process. And I was like, what if we just have the conversation about how it's really hard, and talk to artists about where they almost quit, and talk to artists about what made them keep going when they did almost quit. And so I've had a few of these conversations now where we talk about the messy process of how it came together, and how bad the butterflies got when it was almost production day, or when they wanted to quit on themselves or whatever. And this has been really inspiring for me. I'll like finish a call and just be like, oh my God, that was so, I have to go write music. And so I know it's working for me personally, and I hope that it works for y'all too, and for the audience online, that you can hear conversations that actually spur you to go and work on the unfinished thing, and forgive it for being unfinished. Forgive yourself for being unfinished. You're a work in progress. And the whole process of making art is not just about like, let me churn out a product that people will buy, or let me, do a thing that will sell. It's like, let me discover what I am in the dark. What am I gonna turn out as when it's all unknowns and it's all happy accidents? What comes out of my unconscious mind? What comes out of my like uncontrolled relationships with a crowd, or with a new medium? And so that's the call that this podcast is making, is inviting people to get back in the mess of making their own art, discovering their own insides. Hopefully it has that effect. And if any of you are working on something that has you in a struggle, or if you know an artist who is going through something that has them in a struggle, and you find it inspiring or mystifying that this could be happening at all, let's have a call. Let's have a conversation. Let's share it with the world that like it's normal to be like that. So that's the offer. I hope you'll tune in and follow along with this development, because I really want this community to be more out of the closet with its half-finished artworks, and get them to where they can finish. Thank you. And with that said, we're working on an unfinished piece right now that is about 6 months in the making so far. And I'm just putting this out into the world because every time that I like mention it, somebody else is like, oh, here's a resource that you need to tap into. So I'm like, yes, gimme. The piece is mostly secret, so we can't say too much about it, but it was inspired by a friend's really serious, like deep live action role play game, or LARP, or an immersive theater production that is like an 8-hour game or a 7.5-hour game that we played through last November. And as soon as we finished playing it, we were like, we have to write one of those. That was incredible. It's just an art form that I cannot get enough of. It's like living out a novel. You step into character, you meet other characters, you don't know their backstory, but you know your own, and you just go for it. and then 8 hours later you're a changed person and the whole world transformed.
And you spend 6 weeks like agonizing over your decisions and regretting everything about your life and the decisions that led you here.
It's true. So actually, an upcoming episode of this podcast will be an interview that I did with the author of that work. Her name is Alice. She's incredible, and her piece, Fielding's Hollow, inspired us to start working on this next piece that is... I can't even tell you anything about the plot because it would spoil it, but the setting...
full of intrigue.
Is full of intrigue, which means you can't know about it. That's kind of the true thing about immersive theater is spoilers would wreck the way it feels to immerse yourself in the art. You wouldn't get to immerse if you knew how your character's arc was written or what other people had played when they played your characters. So the best thing about it is that when it's under wraps, you get to have this completely fresh experience of it. Ours is going to be set in the 1200s in France, and it's a medieval court of royals, all vying for power, for love, for many forms of value we can't really talk about. And there will be intrigue galore. It's the kind of thing where everyone has a backstory a mile long, and it will drive everything they do, but you may not learn about it when you're in the game.
Everyone thinks they're the main character is the goal.
Yeah. And that's the effect that we had playing through Fielding's Hollow. It was like, we get our character sheets, and it's like, oh, I'm the main character of this? That's lucky for me. And then you get into the game, and everyone else thought the same thing about their character, and you're all playing with main character energy, which is like, there's not an NPC in the room. It's so cool. And that's also what it's like to live at Fractal. And so we're boiling that down and making a new sauce with it, which is hopefully going to be released this fall or winter. And we're looking for a castle to play it out in.
We may have found a castle.
We keep getting offered like different connections to people with castles, which is kind of a cool thing to have going on in your life.
It turns out there's more people with castles than you would think.
That's true. Yeah. But I'm excited about that work. And in the meantime, we're also looking for just like people to collaborate with on these long form writing projects, especially the experimental theater, immersive theater stuff. So that's definitely a priority. But yeah, I am just like overjoyed to have all of you be my first audience, and thank you for coming. And I hope you'll follow along with the podcast. If you want to find it on YouTube, it's The Rest of the Owl. So just subtract out the fucking, and YouTube will let you find it. And it's also on Patreon. We have $35 a month of donations right now. So woo! Thank you for my Patreon subscribers. And who else is involved here? Oh, I want to send out a special thanks to two people. One is Ava Redimonti, who I hope I'm saying her name right. I've actually never heard it out loud nor met her in person, but she makes amazing artwork, and she was introduced to me by the other person who I want to extend a special thanks, Zach Stamp. Zach hosted like the open mics here for a good long while, also hosted a class here with Ulysses, and was just a tremendous, starter for the fire that's burning here right now. And he had to like withdraw some of his activity when he got promoted at work and has just been super busy. And that promotion came right on the heels of him agreeing to do this podcast with me. So we were going to be co-hosts of this podcast, and our banter was going to be off and then he was like, I have to, and I was like, I get it. I hate it, but I get it. So thank you, Zach, for getting me started. It was your influence that gave me the courage to say yes to this project. And when you had to pull out and I realized I still wanted to be in it, then I was like, I think Zach just provided me with some runway to get my legs moving on this. So thank you, Zach. Thank you, Ava, for the artwork for this podcast. It's tremendous. If you haven't seen it, it's a very cool owl that's like half drawn and still in process. So, yeah, thanks to both of them. Thank you all of you. Thank you to my event hosts who threw the festival today, and to all the contestants who joined in and made it awesome. You're wonderful. So that concludes our podcast for today. I'm going to take us off the air. Have a